Okay, let's talk a bit about SK then. Because like on this side, like one thing I think already you have to say about this team, obviously we'll go into the whole X-Gig topic and everything, Dom, but like that whole story that people saw from the drafts of like, oh, everyone's banning Jax because it's irrelevant. Like I can see why, mate. He is just actually a good player. Like the key thing for me is the meta right now is so perfect for the team they've constructed in the off season. Like I actually think this is when, if they're going to make a team, it should be now, dude. If they're ever going to make like a front to third or some miracle finals, it should be now, right? This just looks like everything's primed.
I mean, I guess this would be the closest that they have, but I still just don't think it's a likely scenario. I mean, you're kind of just hoping that your rookie bot lane that's been good so far just continues to play at the same level, which is really just insane to me if you think about it. Because when I was watching LDLC last year, I was watching a lot of Crowny, right? And they kept on playing versus LDLC, both finals, then in like EU Masters finals, Exekick and DOS were there as well. And this LDLC bot lane that's now in SK, somehow was laning worse into ERL players than they're laning now into like some of like the best players in Europe as a whole. So I think that's the strangest part about this team is that their bot lane somehow played against tougher competition and then improved. I guess like they're just better. They're played better into tougher competition than they did versus weaker competition. So it's really impressive. I just think that in general it's been tough. Also, I think Certus has been having a relatively weak playoffs compared to how good he was playing in regular season. It seems like he's taken a step back. So I just feel like they're going to have trouble. I mean, at some point when your identity has become hope that they, throw the game, like, oh, we're going to be behind, hope that they throw the game, that doesn't normally work for a long period of time. So I'm just not very confident in just their play style. It doesn't seem like a play style that could get you over the hump. I'd much prefer the Mad Lions play style where they're actually able to generate leads. They're able to take over games and win, because it feels like the better teams you play against, the less and less they're going to throw.
Peter, have you actually been surprised by like Exekick's performance? Because the hype I heard from ERLs, it was supposed to be fucking Jack Spectre. Everyone was hyping. Like, it wasn't the Exekick guy. Like, I heard SK was happy to get him, but that's also because SK is a budget org, So, like, what have you thought? Because, like, realistically, for real, that guy's probably like an MVP candidate this split, right?
I'd say Makun on that team is the MVP candidate, but for Exekick, I think that so this guy is I mean he's a fan like. So this guy used to call himself like 15-year-old Carti. So that's actually how I first heard about him back in the day. That's his solo queue name that he used to go by. And basically he's always had really, really strong mechanics. But I think that so he has a big advantage because he has a lot of inbuilt synergy with his current support, right? So a lot of bot lanes are trying to find their synergy right now. You can maybe see this Kaiser and Neon, for instance, right? Like these are two players that were both pretty solid last year and kind of struggling to play together as a duo. So they've never had that issue. It's also worth saying that SK started scrimming before anyone else. They were the first LEC team to start scrimming, and I think you can kind of see that. You can see what they've got in the team. I also think Irrelevant. So bear in mind, I have Mercer on my team who was on Misfits last year. I would say that of the players that were on Misfits last year, Irrelevant was the best player on Misfits. And VTO got the plaudits, Neon got the plaudits, but I mean, I don't think Zanzara got much. But like the point is that like to me, Irrelevant was
him weak side and is what allowed them to get into those fights, presumably.
Yeah, but also he could play Renekton strong side and things like this. Like he wasn't always playing weak side, but the problem is that VTO is a player that just doesn't move, right? Like I mean, he is a player. He sits in mid, he farms up. He if his enemy mid laner was roaming last year when he was on Misfits, he would just push the wave and get plates, right, and just not match. And the fact that Irrelevant was able to do as well as he did with basically no mid pressure at all, like he mismanages his wave, he's completely fucked because enemy mid laner and enemy jungle are coming for him. And the fact he was able to do as well as he did with that mid laner so okay, the French fans are going to like get
what's the MVP in the league, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah, but he played
mid laner. Okay.
You just don't respect French players. I know. I mean, it makes sense.
Someone get Veth your fucking Korean passport ASAP.
And he played. All I will say is he played and picked for himself to look good, right? And sure, he carried lots of games,
he
right?
wasn't good. Okay.
No, that's not what
We just got to dig the hole deeper and deeper, just bury Peter Dunn, and then we'll just continue with the show, you know?
Yeah, it's like we're at the beach, the tide hasn't come in yet, the tide is on the horizon, and then, I'm digging the hole. No, but look, somebody has to play weak side. He did it really, really well. And again, what I would say about VTO is he is the type of player that plays very well with resources roaming into him, right? And that is something that that's one of the reasons why he looks worse this year, right? And Irrelevant played really, really well without those resources that would otherwise have been coming to him, but instead went to mid. So that's all I would say about that. But sorry, we were talking about SK. Yeah, SK. So SK aren't a team that surprises me that much. I think they're very well coached. They're really logical in how they play the game. So yeah, you can always see what they're going to do. They don't make very big mistakes, and when they do make mistakes, they minimize really, really fast. I think that's a good thing about SK.
My other problem on the SK angle as well, Dom, is like, as much as I have to say, like, narratively, they've done an amazing job to go this far. People didn't expect these players to be that good. Obviously, to even be in the playoffs is insane. To have a chance to maybe, like, if everything went perfectly, maybe they could make a miracle run. But my problem is this: even with everything, like, so if you imagine this is supposed to be when everything's gone right, dude, there was still some really close moments in that fucking Vitality series. Like game one, they definitely could have lost that game. Like, and then also like.
Lost.
Remember, this is still the same Vitality that's having all these nightmare moments from the bot where, like, Kaiser has, like, 2 champions he can play right now in the whole meta. Like, mate, how many more advantages do you want? You know what I mean? Like, Vitality looking bad definitely helped them. So the problem is it wasn't like, I know on paper it's like they 2-0'd Vitality. It's like, yeah, but it wasn't, like, so crazy. I was like, wait a minute, they're the real second best team in Europe. Like, I actually still think Koi's better than SK if I had to put my money on the decision between the two, you know?
Easily. I mean, they should just lose here. They should just be done. Like Mad Lions 2-0s them 2-1, whatever, or best of 5. So I guess 3-0, 3-1, whatever. I think it will just be that, and we'll be done with them. I just don't think that they have the peak to match up with another team, especially now that it's best of 5. Like best of 5, it's hard to win.
Yes,
3 games in a row, or like 3 games in a series when you're having all these issues with how you get to the winnable parts of your games.
Peter, what do you think on that? Because another connection that we could make if we were going to compare the former team of Irrelevant to SK now is obviously the downside of Misfits was, even though they found a formula that worked, they looked like one of the more easy teams to predict and counter in the draft. Do you think SK will have issues in a best of 5?
Not as many. What I would say about SK is So I think they're harder to counter in draft. I think Certus he went to Korea in the off season and grinded something like 1,400 games or something on his Korean bootcamp. So he got a lot better and he diversified his champion pool. Like the Certus from last year would concern me. But I think Certus got a bit better. But I think the thing that makes SK good is not about draft. It's about how DOS and Markoon play the mid game, because they're very smart at using fog. And they have kind of really good variations where they'll open side on certain timers that only kind of G2 do consistently, right? So they're very good at knowing when to play mid, when to play side, and Xkick is So the one thing I will say about Xkick that's very impressive is he knows how to disguise when he has backup behind him. And if you look at him, how he plays the game with fog, versus all pro teams have like replays of games, right? So we can see vision lines, right? So the way that Xkick plays around enemy's vision is really, really good. But for draft, I think that I don't think they're particularly exploitable in draft. Like I don't think you can ban their bot lane out, even though some people have tried. But yeah, I think the really interesting series in this playoffs is Mad versus Koi, because G2 are going to win really, really comfortably. Whoever wins first.
Thing is, though, like you say, though, like if you are Mad Lions, if you essentially just gangbang their fucking mid lane, like it's a pretty good strategy to probably win the series, right?
That's what I'd expect Mad to do.
Yeah. Because the other thing as well to me, Dom, is this. Even though people are talking about the idea of like, yeah, but like they can just execute and that should be the best bot lane against, I mean, basically everyone except maybe G2, and even then people probably think they're slightly better than them. The problem with that as well, Dom, is I don't think this is like the meta where you're going to consistently get wins out of bot lane. Like, have you seen in LEC right now what bot lane fights are like in the first fucking 5 minutes, mate? It's a bloodbath. It's like the old school LPL. Everyone just fights constantly. It's like think of how like a koi bot lane, mate. They just flip a coin. If it comes down the right way, they get the kills. If they don't, they're down 0-2. Like it's really hard to consistently win like that. You might even have a draft set up for yourself, then just lose 2 kills at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that makes SK's bot lane good is that it's not just that they play like just bot lane well, or they're like useful in the game, or they get leads. It's that they play the entire roster of meta bot laners. So they play Lucian Nami really well. They play the Caitlyn Lux really well, where other teams just they can only play one of them, or they want to ban them out. For example, that would be the only advantage that I could see SK having over a team like G2. If you ban out Draven and then you go for something like Lucian Nami, what is the answer going to be? Do they have enough aggressive champions to keep up with the fact that you actually play the OP, like the standard meta champion super well? I think that's probably their biggest advantage. But it's hard to do when the games have been going the way that they are, and you really need pressure elsewhere, or it becomes too easy to comp around or play around what your strongest part is.
Okay.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.